Hello all, and welcome to another edition of the Low Code Cafe. This is episode number 121 for December 14th, 2022. My name is Dale Warner. I'm head of support for Plantin App. Today we're going to be talking about the fresh Plantin App features in version 1.24. We'll talk about when version 1.24 will be coming out, but that's our next version, and we have some nice new features to talk about. The Low Code Cafe is a event we do for our community every Wednesday this hour, and it's a weekly team and community webinar where we do demos and hands-on coding, which is the biggest piece of what we try and do. And then also stories and tips from our team and the community as we learn more through our support channel. You are welcome to be our guest speaker if you have something that would be useful to the community. We've had some very great guest speakers over the past years and tends to provide some very useful information. If you have something that you'd like to show or demonstrate, we would be happy to host you. And I know we have one or two of these coming up over the next quarter, some people being involved in that. So by all means, reach out to us. We'd be happy to host you. All these past editions are recorded on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/plantinap. So you are invited to subscribe and get alerts for those so that you know when we publish things. Today, I will be providing product roadmap updates. We'll be talking a little bit about some hot fixes in our From the Trenches segment, and then we'll dive into the biggest piece where we demonstrate our new features. Feel free to engage with us. There's a chat window, there's questions and answers. You can raise your hand and speak. But finally, there's a feedback form. That's a link in what I'm about to post to you here in a minute, but it's also in the invitation that you received for this. So do engage with us. Speaking of product roadmap updates, this is the information as best we know it and is likely to be the way that version 1.24 gets released. It's currently in pre-release. We will be going into beta test on December 19th, and that's going to be a 2-week window. So hopefully you'll have time, those that are interested in participating, to do some beta testing for us. Tell us about anything that works or doesn't work in your environment. Give us feedback, but we are headed towards a release for January 5th. I'm going to talk about all the features that are here. That's what we're doing today. So we'll see all these represented in our later segment. But I just do invite you to participate in beta. And if you are not currently part of that program and want to be, you can sign up for it. Just send us an email at support@plantinap.com. We've previously, in our last release, 1.23, we released 11 hotfixes. Today, we're releasing 4 more, although 2 cover the same thing. They're all in the area of bug fixes. We have, for Search Boost, there is the ability to patch and unpatch the skins functionality, and that required changes for us. It was previously not working. At some point, this patch functionality stopped working. We have fixed it for both Search Boost and our page builder. So the patch and unpatch functionality, what it does is allow you to convert from the default search provider to the search provider. And so you can use patch to activate that feature. Anyway, that's repaired and will work after the bug fix is installed. Also, within forms, we discovered, or there was a bug reported, where if you had a page that had multiple forms on it and you advanced to a new page, if you used the browser back button, those were not correctly displaying when you came back. So we fixed that bug. And there was a kind of an esoteric bug that was also fixed. It was in the area of when you when you have an entity and you where you're using the list of entity type relationship, and you were trying to save an action that was remove an entity, an item from that entity relationship, they weren't saving, and it was giving an unhelpful error message. So the error message was something like internet connection error. It was really about the name of the action was so longer than 100 characters that it wouldn't do the work correctly. Anyway, minor core thing that doesn't impact everybody, but it was found and fixed, and so that's what you'll get in these bug fixes. By the way, we do take all the bug fixes that we find in one release, and those are automatically or by process incorporated in the next release. So whether you get them now if you update and add them to 123, or when you update to 124, you'll get all these as well. I would invite you to engage in the Low Code Campfire. This is an event that we do on Fridays this same hour, and it is instead of a webinar format, it's a meeting format. It gives you the opportunity to interact with us and with your fellow low coders directly. We see a lot of problems, questions answered or resolved in that hour, and so we invite you to both bring issues that you're facing to this meeting to get solved, but also show up and help others and learn in the process. So Low Code Campfire, and the link for that is going to be in the chat as well here in a minute. A quick programming note: next week, December 21, is our Low Code Cafe end of year episode. We've done end of year episodes, Christmas episodes for the last couple of years, and we will continue that tradition. So we'll do some year in review. We'll do a sneak peek of our knowledge base. We'll talk some more about our product roadmap and more. We've had in years past, Santa's been very good to us, and I think there's likely to be presents under the tree for everyone who attends. So I really can't encourage you enough to attend next week. I've mentioned links for this episode, so I'll post those now on the chat. But it's the opportunity to register for the Low Code Campfire, to get to our YouTube channel, to get to our community portal, which is where a lot of questions are answered, and then give us feedback on this event. So lots of links there. And then the email address, if you are not currently participating in beta and want to, again, this is your opportunity to get a hold of the release in advance and find out how it works in scenarios that you devise. We do extensive testing, and we will be testing and improving the product over this beta period as well, according to your feedback, but also the things that we find. Great. So with all that, we'll dive into our hands-on low coding, and we're just going to focus on what you're going to get at version 1.24. The big topics that are included are some enhancements in the area of version control. And I'm going to dive into each of these areas in a second, but this is just the overview. So version control, we introduced a token autocomplete feature in version 1.23. We're extending that to deal with contextual tokens. We introduced API administrative. Our UI has been changing, and we did that in automation. We're now extending that to APIs, so we'll explore that a little bit. There are some of you, even I know on this call, that are interested in being able to do multi-portal licensing. So this is, if you, well, we'll dive into it, but if you have the right license, it gives you the ability to do multiple portals and use some of the features of Plant an App in those portals. And then an enhancement where we do a better job at handling default values and allowing you to change required fields when you're dealing with entities, fields from not required to required. So we'll be dealing with all that, plus talking about some other bug fixes that were rolled into version 1.24. So the first topic, version control. I don't have a scenario where I can demonstrate this to you, but we'll talk about it generally. In the area of enhancements, we discovered that not all items were being committed to the repository. There were some some items that weren't being committed, and so now we've expanded the definition of version control to commit them. Also, we're committing deletes to the repository. So if you've placed a form, created a page, placed a form on the page, and then you've decided to delete the form from the page, that form, that delete gets committed. And the idea is that as we expand this feature into the multi-environment scenario, your development environment will be able to push deletes along to user acceptance, your UAT environment or your production environment. So it will minimize the number of times you'll have to go outside of the Git model, the multi-environment model, to get your changes done and tested and moved to production. There was also, if you moved a page or a module to a different place on your site, we didn't capture and commit that to the repository, and now we do. So all those minor enhancements or bug fixes, I guess, depending on the way you look at it. But version control is a new feature, and it's not surprising that we're going to have some things that it will continue to enhance over the weeks to come and versions to come. We also added a new feature, which is the ability to do a full push of your application into the Git repository. So essentially, you're just backing up or copying all of your program definition, site definition, not data, but site definition into the repository. And so whether there was any kind of these kinds of inconsistencies being detected, or simply you want to make sure that you have a full push of it, there's with one button, which is going to appear on the version control page. I think it's in the top right. You'll be able to one push and send all of your content to Git. That's version control. I will remind you that there are questions on the chat or questions in the Q&A as we go along. Happy to address them as we go. The next one will start to get a little bit hands-on. The token autocomplete is now going to include contextual tokens. That's a general direction that we're trying to go, and it's working in a limited sense, at least enough to demonstrate it to you today. It will be expanded, so it's you'll be able to see it and play with it, but it's not going to be enough that it will be fully useful to you. But I'll point out the limitations here, and then hopefully as the release is done, that it will become more and more useful. But it is a promise. It is a direction that we're going, and will appear in our new UIs. So let's take a look at what I'm talking about. I have a empty Plantain App version 124 website going here. And if I were to go into automation and create a job, we can add an action like send email. And within that, the autocomplete feature that we have allows you, if you type a bracket, it starts to, it now autocompletes, it suggests tokens that are available from the tokens module. So whether it's our core tokens or tokens that you've defined, you can find these tokens by autocomplete, and if you pick them, you can find the other things that are the sub tokens that are part of that. That was a feature that was introduced in 1.23. If you the new feature is that if we add an action like a create update token, and so this will create a contextual token. So this is a token that that gets created as part of our actions, and I'm going to move it above the send email. So now when we are doing, if we type a bracket and we're looking for things, we can find Café 123 demo, the things that were created in the current context, you'll be able to find them and add them. It's for things that are above where you are in the action stack. So, for example, if I were to, if it's not defined yet, you're not going to be able to find it. So if we're in the send email action and we're trying to put in a to address and type a bracket, the Café, I lied. I don't know why it's finding. I thought that it didn't do this. I suspect that I don't know which way it'll go, but it's something that's in the context. So now you're gonna be able to find it and use it. I think it's going to be limited to things above the context, above where you are. Patrick, do you have any information about that? Am I remembering that one wrong?
I don't know. Sorry.
Okay, but since it is created in the context, the idea is that instead of having to scroll up and find the item where something was defined and then copy and paste it into your action, you'll be able to just rely on the autocomplete to get you there, and so it's going to be a time saver. So I mentioned limitations, and so the limitations currently are that the create update token is currently the only action that I'm aware of that actually pushes these into the context so that it's available, and the send email action is the only one that where it is available to consume, where you can get these tokens out of the context. And it's only in our new UI, new user interface. So this is more about exploring for you, if you're dealing with it in beta test or when we release it, more about exploring what you're going to be able to do as we push this out throughout our product. It's only very useful in a limited sense. We have a question. Will it autocomplete field IDs from the form too? So the answer, Mark, is yes. Forms are not part of our new UI. When we get to forms and the new UI, we're going to be redoing all of it as we've done with automation and now APIs. Then yes, it will be part of that. So that's part of the complexity. That's why we're saving forms for last. That forms have all the things that are in, for example, automation and APIs, and but adds the complexity of fields as well. So, yep, we'll do that.
We also have a question from Ben about the version control too.
So the question was about if on the version controls full push, would that overwrite all the existing history or simply update what is already there? Yeah, so I believe what you're going to see is it's a new commit, meaning all the old whatever else is on that branch. I think by definition, the Git is not going to allow you to delete things off of it. That's the whole point of Git. There's a full audit history. So it's going to be a new push that includes everything, and you would be able to go back to the pre-push and see what was there before. So I don't think you're going to lose your audit. Cool. Great questions. So I hope that you will explore this, but again, just realize that not all actions push these things into autocomplete, and not all actions consume them. It's really quite limited at this point. But the idea would be that anything, like, for example, if you do a SQL query and the output of a SQL query is a token, that token would then be available for you in a later step to autocomplete. In the same way, if you use one of our entity actions like read all books or read all customers, that the output is a token, and that token will be in the context also. So that's where we're going, and it's an ambitious effort, and it's going to take us a version or two to get fully fleshed out. So we've been talking about administrative user interface enhancements, and those same things, we've been talking about them. You've had them available to you in 123 for automation, but now the APIs section is going to do that. And so those things include, for example, drag and drop, the autocomplete we've just been talking about, action validation, editing via URL, and namespaces. So let's take a look at what some of those are. We go into APIs, and I've got a couple here, but I'm going to create a new one. And I'm just going to notice that it now has a namespace, and you can select the namespace that this exists in. If you haven't created the namespace, that's done in entities. So, but that same list of namespaces that you have in entities will be here. I don't have one, so I'm going to select default, and I'm going to create something called Café 124 as an API. It'll be a get API. But notice the look and feel of this whole page has changed to the new interface. And by the way, we're not immediately taking away the old interface. We want to get this right. So just like we've done elsewhere, like with automation, we have an old view. So if you find anything that you can't do, or you're just not happy with the way this is working yet, you can use the old view and not impact your. You want to make sure you have a way to continue to work with APIs as we roll out this new thing. So new look and feel. So we have save and close, save and test. If I save this though, notice that when I go back in and edit it, that I have it has a URL. This is a new feature, wasn't there before. But it's like what we did with jobs. What this does then is lets you, if you ever want to come back and edit this job, you can use the URL. If you copied and pasted or linked it somewhere, you'd be able to launch directly into editing a particular API. So that's one of those features that are there. But for actions, like we can add an action. We'll put one in here. No, that's not what I wanted. I missed. So I'm going to delete that out. But notice we have, this dot menu, this option menu that, all the look and feel is completely different. So let's try and see if I can get the right one here. I want to create and update a token. We'll call it Café, token value of something unique and individual. So if I were to add another one, that would be an execute actions. It allows me to drag and drop this item into and out of. This was only possible previously with a copy and paste kind of, or export import kind of functionality. So you get drag and drop. We also have these nice buttons here. For example, there's a copy to clipboard. So if you want to copy something, we also have a paste action that lets you paste from the clipboard. So very nice, easy, one-click kinds of things. So David asks the question, how would you recommend securing the API endpoints? And while that isn't currently, that's not part of anything that we're changing there, I'll just point out the security features. There's a couple, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about where we're going. The security features of API endpoints allow you to restrict, for example, calls to only be coming from specific domains or only from the current DNN instance, current portal. So you have some ability to restrict it that way. And then you can also say it's public. So by default, we're seeing that it's a public with public access. Everybody would be able to access this endpoint. but you can change it to JWT access, which means they have to have a username and a password and some procedures to connect with the API. You can issue API keys, so it only works if they have the key. You can manage hand off a key to somebody that you're authorizing its use, remove the key, and it prevents the use. And then you can also make it be private, which is to say it only can be it's there and it can be used only within this current application. So there's a number of security things that are already built in. One of the things that's on our roadmap is that we create a number of API endpoints by default. When you create, this is a feature of the product, that when you create, for example, a customer entity, behind the scenes we build customer APIs that let you add, change, delete, and update a customer. We're going to allow you the option, give you the option rather, of creating or not creating those APIs, so that if you have no need of them, they don't exist and won't require management. So I hope that answers your question, David, but if not, you're welcome to ask more or reach out to support. We'll be happy to help address any concerns you might have. Another question that came in that really is a comment that Mark is enjoying the drag and drop, and we're glad about that, and we are certainly planning to expand it further. And I'm glad that you're enjoying the features. So good. So that's drag and drop. Within our, let's see, if we were to, let's verify this. If I try to save this, we get an error message. This is part of our action validation. It says the highlighted actions have validation errors, meaning there might be some missing required parameters. So I created, I'm going to create update tokens action. You can have as many tokens as you want that you're creating there. And in this case, I added one, but I didn't give it a token name that's required. So we're going towards, in this new user interface, that if it's required, we won't let you save it in this incomplete state. So you'll either have to fill in a name or remove it, and then we can save it and close it. So that gives us, so that's part of the new UI. So drag and drop, autocomplete with like send email. I think I have one here, or I didn't do it. We can add it. Again, this feature, autocomplete, very limited at this point, but type of bracket, you start to get this autocomplete type functionality. Other things that are part of that is you can have actions that are disabled. You can click on that and they're unhighlighted and they won't execute. So they're there, and it keeps you from having to conditionalize them out, but you can bring them back just by activating. Nice for debug code, things like that. The conditions are put under this code icon. So if you have a condition, you would put it there. So we've just all the same things that have been there before, but we've rearranged it. I talked about copying to a clipboard, which is allowing you to do copy and paste. And then some of the other things that are available, you can delete it, you can export it, you can clone it, which I guess clone is very much like copy and paste all in one step. So all very possible. There's also expand all. So if you click, everything opens up all at one time. As you're scrolling along, your actions for this section remain on the top of the page. So you don't lose the ability to add actions and have to scroll a bunch. So we're trying to make it a friendlier developer experience. We can collapse all those down again, which is really a frequently needed feature. Then you can just open up the one that you need. So many changes there. So everything that you're seeing in automation is going to be moved into APIs. And I'll just mention on this story that we're continuing to build out this functionality in automation and APIs, but the next place that we're likely to go is listings, where you've got buttons, they have action stacks, and so being able to manipulate, drag, drop the actions within those is likely to be next. Again, I mentioned forms is the most complex, and we're trying to get it right before we move into the most complex area. But the idea is it'll be throughout the product with this new functionality. One that a lot of people have been waiting for a long time is multi-portal licensing. And so if you have the appropriate licensing, you will be able to have multiple portals in your applications, in your instance of the core platform. This won't include features like entities and workflows, but it will let you put on forms and listings and the things that some of our more established customers really require. So, and yeah, Jesse adds to the conversation. Woohoo! Yes, we're happy to finally deliver on this promise that we've been talking about for several releases. And it's pretty easy, so I can demonstrate it to you here in my limited environment. And of course, I'm working on a brand new environment, kind of an alpha version. And when any of our developers do a new compile, it automatically sends me the dependencies. So it takes me a minute to let that refresh. While we're doing this, I'll just mention we have some version control kinds of things that go on for you, so that when we come up with new versions, we don't automatically, except in just very rare circumstances. The intention is never push updates on you and leave you fully in control of updating your system. We were the extraordinary circumstances, there could be a security issue that's just too important to ignore. But in general, you'll see things that will flag them as critical updates. They'll show up in your update screen to be updated. But for me, because I'm on an alpha version, it pushes out of sight of my control. Ben, on you're asking multi-portal. I'm still getting there, what's covered, but the idea is that you will have access to forms, listings, tabs, tokens. At least to be able to consume tokens, you might have to define them in the primary portal, but you'll be able to consume tokens. So all the things that our older DNN customers got with an enterprise license will almost certainly be covered. Things that you won't have are the plant and app specific features. So listings won't have the ability to, for example, read from entity, but you'll be able to create a SQL statement to get to the same database. It's all in the same database. So there's, I suspect it's, I'm very optimistic this is going to cover what you need, but let's dig into it. So within the system, I've created a subportal, but if you had another site, this is a child site, I'm going to open that up. It currently is going to load as unlicensed. You could put content here. Oh, I think I opened the wrong one. Let me see. Here's the one I was trying to open. So we've got a child portal, or you could have a parent portal that's all on the same instance. Only the plant and app portal is going to be licensed on your standard plant and app license. So this is the new way that you'll be activating that. I skipped a step within plant and app, within your core. Your main portal where plant and app is installed, you will need to come and go to the add-ons. I've already done it here, but there's a new add-on called the plant and app multi-portal licensing. So you'll have to install this add-on, which is just a simple, you go to add-ons and click the install button for whatever add-on that you want. And so multi-portal, that then is installed on your instance and be available to put somewhere. So I am going to then on my portal, we would go and create a page and put this new item on it. I'm just going to add a page. Typically, this would be something that you would hide and would only be available to administrative users. So I'll do that. I will make it only available to admins here. So not to users. We'll do a little denial here, but it's only available to admins. And so I've got a page, and I'm going to add that page. On the page itself, we'll go in and add a module. It's the multi-portal licensing. Drop it on the page. It says it's not licensed. We're going to do an activate. So this is going to go to the same license that is under the primary domain. So this is what's licensed for me. And now I'm going to license the subportal or child portal, and you simply click activate. And with that, it says successfully licensed. You'll already see the licensing message in our page builder has gone away. And if I were to go to the home page, and for example, now I could add a action grid or an action form to the page and configure it, and it'll work just fine. So again, you're going to have access to the core type of modules. It will not work with, for example, if you tried to place an app builder module, which would give you access to all the things like workflows and automation and things like that. You know, I didn't try it, and I like doing things live to see what happens. I think you can probably put a scheduler on the page. Yep, so you can do that. The tokens module is no longer there. Let's see, you got a new question. I see that the version you're now using, Action Grid, has a query timeout default of 10 minutes. Yeah, so this is going to come out in 124. The question was about if you're managing a listing or a grid and using a data source of SQL Select, there's a query timeout feature. So if you have a very long running query, the ability to get a very long running query to not time out. And so you can set it for as long as you need to. Yeah, as far as I know, that is going to be part of 124, and it is in alpha now. When 124 goes to beta, you'll have access to it. So again, because I was mentioning about tokens, the only thing you're not going to have access to is tokens. In terms of creating them, but if you were to try to consume them, and we'll do this with an HTML module, we'll drop it here and configure it. We should be able to say username to appear, and just like the old days, we still have to activate it for a HTML module. So going into settings and say that it's okay to replace tokens, that you'll still get you'll be able to use tokens, no problem, but to define them, you'll have to come into your primary portal, go to tokens and define them here. We no longer have a module that does tokens, so you won't be able to add it into your subportal. But that should open up some functionality. For example, if you're, again, if your licensing supports this and you want to have a primary portal that's an internal site and maybe a secondary portal that is for your end users, a customer type portal, that you'd be able to have a completely separate portal, interact, collect data through forms, display them through listings, format it nicely with tabs on a page, and still be able to pull in a very data from your primary portal through the database. So opens up a nice type feature. Yep, so easy setup. You install the add-on, add it to a page, activate the portal, and you're good to go. That's multi-portal licensing. We have made some changes in the areas of entities. Entities now can have some default values. And so let's see what that looks like. I'm going to close out my extra portal here and go to entities and create our first entity. So the entity I want to create is going to be customer. And I'm going to define a very simple entity. It's going to have a name and a address there. We now have this property default value, and so I can put, for example, unknown. See that we might have a little CSS problem here. The first letter is clipped a little bit, but we have a default value. And what this does for us now, in addition to, we have to select name as the primary display property, but we'll save that off and then take a look at it. So we go to customer and open that up. And when we create a new customer, notice that the name comes up with, the address comes up with unknown. The default value is provided for us. So you can use that feature to get our automatically generated forms to provide default values for you. I just want to mention there is a kind of a little bit of a line there that I want to point out, that there's some actions that are made, like create new customer or partially update customer, things like that. And the create new customer will not acknowledge that default. You'll still have to provide it. It's only in our forms where we're providing, where we're doing that default. But it's a nice feature that lets you define a default for a field, and if you're using our custom generated forms, that they're there automatically. Can default values contain tokens? I'm going to say no, but I'm not afraid to try it. So let's find out. Let's say we wanted the user ID to go into address. Man, I love the questions. So it's saved, and we're going to refresh here and do a new, and oh my goodness, it works. So that the token is appearing there. And so behind the scenes, when we take a look at the form that we're building, the address field probably just inserts whatever that value is into the initial value. Nope. I wonder where we're
probably on events.
That would have been my guess. So yep, we're pushing it into original address. So yep, just the value. The answer is, Roberto, yes. Thank you for asking. So kind of sticking with that theme, there's another feature. If we add a property, and we've got records in this table already. In the past, we had a property with a problem, an issue, where we add a property and we want to make it be required. When you're adding a property and you're making it required, you already have records. Those would have before come in as default of null, and so it wouldn't let you do that. It would error out, wouldn't let you do it. So now we can just provide a default value, and when we save this property, it will do an update on the table, and so all the things that got added will automatically have a phone of unknown. And I hadn't actually added records, had I? That wasn't a very good. I wonder it wouldn't display anything. I said I had records, but I didn't. So I'll have to demonstrate this again. I'll add another field called type, property called type. So property type, I'm going to make it required, and I'm going to say root no. I'm going to save this. And refresh. The new property is going to come in, but it has a value. Great. So all this to say that when you change a property from not required to required, this is going to be supported. It's going to ask you what the value is for all the ones that were null, because it can't allow you to have nulls. Cool. There were a number of bug fixes that were incorporated, and I'll just mention them. I'm not going to demonstrate them, but and some of them we've already talked about as hot fixes in the weeks past. So in our updates functionality, if you've installed add-ons, our goal is that every add-on that you've installed will also be automatically updated. So if you have 5 add-ons installed and you go from 123 to 124, that the add-ons get updated as well. Previously, sometimes they were not, and so this gets that taken care of. In our listings, there's the ability to have scripts that are associated with the view that you're working on, and now it's correctly supported under card and calendar views. Behind the scenes, we create these action names that are, and this is the bug I was talking to you about a minute ago. Action names get created, and depending on your database and what you choose and the names that you give things, sometimes it would get very, very long and wouldn't get saved correctly. So now they're getting saved correctly. As Ben was excited about, the timeout parameter on SQL queries was added. We have a feature, and I think I've mentioned it in recent episodes, called free GeoIP. It's the idea that you can get a certain amount of information about a user's IP address, like their country or city or various things, and all that is let's see, it's that one I can at least point to. So it's a token, and so free GeoIP, you can get country code, country name, region code, and the token just looks something like this. You can test it out here. You can see I'm in the United States. Of course, this is according to where the IP address is, so it's not geolocation like you're used to on a phone. It's not going to, it'll be close, but not down to the meter, and meaning close, it might be miles away. But at least it'll give you some idea, and so that you can use that in a variety of ways inside your application. If you only want to offer content, for example, or different content in different countries, you can use it for that feature, for that purpose. This was broken because the underlying service that we were used changed. So now we were able to change that, and it is based on reallyfreegoip.org. So nice feature. We had an issue where you could do certain things that would make buttons drop out of a group of buttons on a listing, and so that's been corrected. And then currently our minimum SQL Server version is SQL Server 2012. We inadvertently have used some SQL 2016 commands in some of our content, and we've replaced those, so we're no longer using those SQL 2016 commands. However, we've mentioned before, SQL 2012 is 10 years old, and fast. It's either been discontinued or coming up on the deadline. I can't remember. But the point is that we will be changing our SQL minimum version soon. And so that's something for you to be aware of. But in the meantime, we're whatever we announce as our minimum version, we're going to release SQL commands and keep our product completely compatible with our minimum. And let's see, we got a yay from Ben about button groups unlinking. So yeah, there's a little something in here for everybody. And again, some of it is just a promise for tomorrow. So we're ending with 9 minutes to spare, but there's still some time for questions. Let's call that an opportunity for questions. So or comments. Underscores are allowed in token names. That's a question. We went with absolutely underscores are allowed in token names, but not dashes or other characters. But those were previously allowed. They got inadvertently removed, and so we've put that back. So
I think that was available in. It's definitely available in 23, but maybe 22 as well. I can't remember.
I agree. I think that was a hot fix for that in 23. And while we're talking about that, I'll just mention that on our updates screen, when you're looking at hot fixes that you haven't yet installed, you can see what's available now. I'm on 124. Hot fixes are there, but there's between that and the change log, you can see things that are you can see when some of these things are. If you have any questions about when they're introduced, we can always answer that on support as well. So, but to answer the question, yeah, I think that one was done in 23 and available as a hot fix. Okay. So, final questions or comments? Anyone on the call who's not part of the beta that would like to be, we would be happy to add you to that, and it just gives you access to the code early, and you'll be able to use it in your environment or use it hopefully on a dev environment. We don't recommend installing it on a production environment. Find things, find issues, and get them reported immediately. So, given the quiet, I'm going to call it 7 minutes early and just thank you for coming. Can't encourage you enough. Thank you, David. We would be happy to have them be part of the beta. But I can't encourage you enough to come next week to the Low Code Cafe. There will be some, again, there's something for everybody. So thanks, Mark. Thanks all. It's been a good session. And we will see you for more low coding in Campfire and next week at our end of year episode. Thanks all.